All right, we are live here, Moneyline MMA, coming back for UFC 317. About an hour and a half later than we usually do on Monday afternoon, but as I'm sure you guys are aware, if you've been watching on a week-to-week basis, Jose and I have been doing a little schedule adjusting, just getting through the times here, some personal changes. So we should be back to that 5 p.m. time every week going forward for the most part. But of course, it might switch up here and there. Anyone who was here last week will remember that it was just me making picks for this card that was shoot, it was in Baku, I believe. Baku, Azerbaijan. Of course, it was headlined with Jamal Hill and shoot, man, I took the bait on Jamal Hill and I lost. That was an incorrect pick. Khalil Roundtree, credit to him, really just kind of dominating Jamal Hill. And it's interesting because both those dudes are title challengers in the past. But Khalil Roundtree, like, I don't think, like, of course, me included, a lot of people didn't expect him to dominate Jamal Hill so well on the feet. You know, Jamal Hill comes with power. That's about it. That's what I learned. It's power or nothing for Jamal Hill. But at least I can say that was only my four weight only. Still a lot of weight to lose there, four weight. But my 5 weight pick, Curtis Blades. Split decision win for Curtis Blades. But he gets the job done against Rizvan Kuniev. Man. Curtis Blades, I think, is better than what he showed. But I do think he won that fight 100%. Of course, there's a little bias because he's my 5 weight. Midibek Oralbai with a Kimura submission in the first round. Man, I liked Oralbai, but I should have put him as my 5 weight. That's crazy how well Midibek came in there. Dominated Tafik Masayev. Then ended up being one of the easiest picks of the night for me in Oralbai. Unfortunately, after that, though, Ignacio Bahamondes. You know, Rafael Fiziv's dog. At least you can give him that. But decision loss for Ignacio. But the worst pick probably Nicholas Mata. He became almost like one of the poster finishes of the card because Nazim kind of caught him with Nicholas's back against the cage, and Nicholas is kind of like trying to defend punches, and Nazim just hits him with a nice little right hook and kind of cripples Mata. Didn't really like unconscious knockout. That's why it still says TKO because I don't believe Mata went unconscious, but he did give up and defend himself. So that was a tough one to see as a guy who I thought Nicholas Mata was going to bring a little bit more to the table there instead of allow himself to get backed up against the cage. But either way, hindsight's 2020. We're going to go into these picks here that Jose and I have with excellence. That being said, to anyone new here, we do our picks in a 5-pick system in which we weigh them in order of confidence from 5 weight to 1 weight. 5 weight's the most confident, 1 weight's the least confident. We pick 5 of the 12 scheduled fights for UFC 317, and we weigh them in order of confidence. So going forward, we'll start with our locks of the week. We only confer on these picks right before the show so we know what order we're going in. Otherwise, these picks are made independently, and we just combine the weights to get our locks of the week and underdogs of the week. So that said, moving forward, let's go with my 5 weight, my lock of Saturday afternoon. We're going to start, of course, in the main event. In fact, most of our picks are going to be in the main event just because, especially with pay-per-views, that's where a lot of the excitement lies. I'm going straight into the future bout. Feature. It almost sounded like I said future, which it is also in the future. But this is the feature, the third last fight on the main card. Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van of the flyweight division. And what a dog Joshua Van is, man. He's coming back. He's coming in off of, I forget who. Let me quickly check. Someone had to drop out against Royval. It was Manel Kape. It was supposed to be Royval versus Manel Kape. And Joshua Van steps in. All I know is that Josh Van stepped in because he literally fought on June 7th and knocked out Bruno Silva in the 3rd round. So this dude's going to be fighting twice in June. And that's not the reason I'm picking against him. In fact, that might be a reason to pick for him because of all the confidence. He's clearly in shape. He clearly went through an entire training camp to go fight Bruno Silva and knock him out. And who knows what's going to happen next. So he's clearly at the top shape of his life, right? It's not necessarily a double down fight is the reason I'm picking against him. I just think this is a crazy step up. Like, crazy. We're talking Cody Durden, Edgar Cairez, Ray Tsuruya, Bruno Silva, and then former title challenger Brandon Royval. Like, what? And Brandon Royval brought it to Pantoja. Some people thought Royval won the fight, which I don't think he did. He got taken down. He lost too much of the wrestling game. Royval will not stop. Royval's last 3 fights have been 25 minutes, and this guy continues to bring it. He's landed over 100 strikes in all 3 of his last fights because throughout those 25 minutes, he's on the gas. He will not back up. He will not let himself get outpaced. And I just don't see it being a good matchup for Josh Van. I think the step up is way too steep, man. Like, I like Josh Van a lot, and I would have loved to see him get the Paddy Pimblett treatment, where he had to fight like 10 guys that were average before he fought anyone good. And even then, it was a washed up Tony Ferguson or whatever else. Like, that's what they need to do with Josh Van, but they're throwing him to Royval already. That's crazy. I think Royval is going to win this fight somewhat decisively by decision. I think he's just going to slice and dice Josh Van like an absolute like boxing savant. I think it's an easy 37-20 decision at the end of it. Any thoughts, Jose?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. All the way to like, having him as my 5 weight as well. Brandon Royval, like as you mentioned, he's a former title contender. He was already scheduled to fight, and then Joshua Van steps in. And Joshua Van is a dog, and if it was another guy, I would have definitely gone for Joshua Van. I've gone for him in the past, but as you mentioned, just a huge step up in competition. Brandon Royval, like he has the ability to be champ. Like he's shown, as you mentioned, against Alexander Pantoja, and then he goes on to beat former champ Brandon Moreno in a split decision, and then he comes back again and beats Tatsuro Taira again in another split decision. So he's up there, even though those are 2 close wins. Those are some elite fighters he's beating, even if it's close. He's still hanging with the top of the best. And, Joshua Van, he's more still of a up-and-coming contender. Still, he still has left. He still has more to prove. If he beats Brandon Royval, then, yeah, he probably does belong somewhere in the top 5. But he's going to be from there on, he's going to be getting fed monsters continuously, which could be detrimental to his career. Because we've seen that happen in the past where a guy gets one notable win and then they push him too fast, and then they kind of lose some and then they fall back in the rankings. Like maybe they should be hanging more with the top 10 guys or so. But that being said, I have all the confidence on with Brandon Royval. So confident in him. Like he's had a full training camp. Like I doubt that it's gonna be a slip up. I hope those words don't come back to haunt me. But Brandon Royval, yeah, he has the ability to be champ, and again, depending who you ask, he probably should be champ by now. That being said, I think he's just overall going to just win this unanimously. I think he's going to beat Joshua Van and possibly maybe get a submission. Joshua Van, out of his 2 losses, he's been submitted once, but that hasn't been since 2021 before he was in the UFC. And so that being said, I think Brandon Royval is just going to win this most likely unanimous decision. So I agree with you 100%. He is my 5 weight as well.
And what's crazy, man, is Brandon Royval's plus 100, Joshua Van's minus 128. I like Joshua Van a lot. He's an exciting guy to watch. And you're right, we both picked him before. Big fans of Josh Van, but minus 128, that's crazy. I would not. That's crazy. Brandon Royval is such a good bet here. That's crazy. Do it right now. Plus 100 is crazy. I'm not sure I felt this confident in a long time.
That is actually, yeah, that is some good money right there being given. Like I didn't even look at, honestly, I didn't even look at the odds until right now, until you just mentioned it. And him being the underdog is just insane. And I would definitely say put your money on him. Just he's our 5 weight. Definitely. Oh my goodness, this is a good one.
Like the only way I can justify it is like, is there a lot of just people that they're like stat warriors where they just like look at stats and outcomes only, and they're like, well, Brandon Royval's only won by split decision recently, so he must not be good. Because, like, if you actually watch Brandon Royval fight, he's good. He's so good. He just, like, he's not amazing. He's a good at all things kind of fighter, and those fighters those are tough to beat. I don't know, man. I feel like there's few ways to justify that he's an underdog in this fight. Like, maybe if Josh Van had come off a knockout that happened a couple months ago and he had a whole camp or something, but I don't know. Josh Van just went to round 3 with Bruno Silva. I mean, what is he? Is he carrying any damage? I mean, I don't know. You go 3rd round with any UFC fighter, you'd think you'd carry a little damage 2 weeks later. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, that's huge. Him just fighting earlier this month too. Not that many dudes can do that. Like just fight within a month and then get back to back wins. And yeah, he went 3 rounds as well. So even though he won, he still went like if he won in the first round, kind of like when Kamzat did it before, when
Right.
I think he knocked out Joe Mearshart like in the first round, took no
Yeah.
damage, so he came back and
Yep.
fought right away. That made sense, but when but going to the third round, yeah, you have to expect he took some bit of damage, even though he didn't get knocked out. He definitely probably woke up the next morning with some aches and bruises.
I mean, 76 strikes on the books landed by Bruno Silva in that fight before getting finished. So, last note I'll put in there is that even if you're still doubting it, right? Tatsuro Taira, the most recent win on Brandon Royval's uh, list here, record, Tatsuro Taira is really like kind of a carbon copy, like career trajectory wise, as Josh Van, right? They're about the same age. Tatsuro Taira went into that fight undefeated. He was a huge prospect that was only like 24, 25 years old, right? All the exact same things as Josh Van. Josh Van's 24 years old. He's a huge prospect. He's coming in off. The only difference is that he's not undefeated like Tatsuro Taira was. But just think about this for a second. Remember what Tatsuro Taira was. We would have all said that Tatsuro Taira would beat Josh Van back before he lost to Royval. But now that we've seen him lose to Royval, given it was a close fight, sure, right? But now that we've seen him lose, we'll go, oh, well, maybe Josh Van's better. That just changed. We didn't even see Josh Van do the fight yet. So I'm going to go ahead right now and say that he's just not as good. You know what? I think Josh Van versus Tatsuro Taira would have been a better matchup than Josh Van versus Royval. But in Royval's perspective, this is a good matchup for him because he can get himself a nice little win, prove that he's easily going to knock out some prospects and get himself back in the title conversation. But yeah, all the thoughts there on the main event. Sorry, actually, not the main event. The 5-weight is what I meant to say. The feature bout. We actually have a lot more exciting, well, main event like championship fights to discuss here tonight. And I'll let Jose carry it away with this 4-weight.
Yes, so for this next fight, this is the lightweight bout between Benil Dariush and Renato Moicano. Right now, the odds, what I'm seeing look exactly identical on FanDuel to the last fight we just talked about. Benil
Yep.
Dariush is a plus 100 underdog, while Moicano is the minus 128 favorite. This one as well, you know what? I'm going with Benil Dariush, even though the last couple of fights have not really gone his way, being finished both of the times. Both early on, especially that Arman Sarukian fight. Just not a lot was seen from Benil Dariush at all, and I just don't think like those fights are a good representation of who he is. We've seen him. For example, the 3 fights beforehand, he won all 3 rounds into the bell, and he's won unanimously. One of them being actually split, but he's got finishing power as well. Like he's bullet laser with his punches. Like he doesn't throw the highest volume of strikes, but when he lands, he throws power bombs. Like against Matus Gamera, even though he didn't finish him, he let Matus throw a couple shots, and even Gamera was throwing some haymakers himself. But then when Benil Dariush connects, you just hear it and it's just loud, and people just drop. And that's what I'm expecting to come out of this too. Like I think Benil Dariush is actually possibly going to knock out Moicano. Moicano, out of his 6 losses, has been knocked out 3 times. It hasn't happened in a minute. But I do think Benil Dariush, and anyone has the ability to knock out anyone, obviously, in this division. It's a tough division, but Benil Dariush, he's not even that, like, these guys are 36 years old. Both are actually similar in almost every aspect of physicality. That is, Moicano 5'11", Benil Dariush 5'10". Both have the same reach, and when it comes to significant strikes, both throw a high volume, but Moicano absorbs more than what Benil Dariush absorbs. Moicano absorbs 3.55 significant strikes per minute, while Benil Dariush absorbs 2.65. So those little punches that like every once in a while when Benil Dariush connects, I do think is going to do more damage to Moicano. And Moicano, I do like him a lot on the feet. I mean on the floor. When he works off his back as well. But Benil Dariush, he's shown time and time again that doesn't matter, and he'll put pressure on even if you're on the bottom, like he did against Tony Ferguson. So I think Benil Dariush, like he has this one. It should be a win for him. Charles Oliveira and Arman Sarukian, obviously, you know those dudes are in line next to the championship. Obviously, Oliveira is next in line for a title shot, and Arman Sarukian, as we all know, he was in line to get the next title shot until he pulled out against Islam. So losing against those two guys who are, one being a former champ and possibly going to be the new champ again, and then Arman Tsarukyan, who top prospect and possibly a future champ as well. I think nothing to shy away from. Moicano, not saying he can't be champ. He had the opportunity to last minute against Islam, but he obviously didn't show much. And I just think like Moicano, he's not a fast starter like Benil Dariush. Moicano kind of warms up a bit and eases into it, while Benil Dariush, he keeps calm, but then he just, like I said, he'll throw power haymakers and then can make it lights out immediately. So, and if he doesn't, then I just think he's going to roll all the way up until unanimous decision win in this one. Because again, the times that Benil's lost, it happens really early on, even before losing to Oliveira. He hasn't lost since 2018, and that also was in the first round against Alexander Hernandez. So if Benil Dariush, when he loses pretty early in the fight. So Moicano needs to come. If Moicano were to get this win, he's going to have to come in hot and heavy. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think it's going to be Benil Dariush. I feel very confident with Benil Dariush. He is my 4-weight. Nick, what are your thoughts on this one?
So we're gonna go for a disagreement here. So one for one agreement, one disagreement. I got Renato Moicano here, and I did knock him down from what we discussed ahead of the show, Jose. Now Moicano is my 2-weight, swapped with Oliveira is my 3-weight. So I'm gonna switch that, and of course that also gives away my 3-weight, but we'll discuss that soon. For now, Renato Moicano is my 2-weight. The reason being is that I was very fascinated to hear that there's a high somewhat likelihood that you believe Benil Dariush will knock out Renato Moicano, because to be quite honest, I was thinking the opposite, in the sense that I think Moicano has a better chance to finish Dariush, and that's the reason I like Moicano a little bit in this fight. I think this fight stays standing, and if it doesn't, I'm not too worried. With Moicano having 10 submission wins of his 20 career wins, Moicano's actually got more submission wins than Dariush, who I think of as a very jiu-jitsu heavy fighter. But Moicano's got more ground finishes. I trust Moicano on the ground, and I think Benny's going to stay away from that situation unless maybe a knockdown occurs. And to be honest, like, I get what you're saying in that Moicano may start somewhat slow, but I mean, his last 2 wins were round 2 knockouts against Benoit Saint Denis and Jalen Turner. I consider those guys to be pretty good. Nowhere near, of course, the caliber of like Arman Tsarukyan or Oliveira. So it definitely depends on what you think of Dariush's trajectory too. He's getting a little older, but so is Moicano. I think him and Moicano are like the same age, so there's really no old man argument to be made. But I guess like it still feels to me like Benil Dariush is kind of past his prime. Like, he got what could have been, like, if he beat Gamrot and then he got his shot against Oliveira, and if he was able to beat Oliveira, he was getting the title shot. Like, it was all but guaranteed, and he couldn't get it done. And I'm not knocking Oliveira. In fact, I just announced that I'm picking him later in this card, but the point being that I still like Moicano's striking game a lot. I think Moicano, in my opinion, actually holds more of a KO potential, whether or not it's in the first round. When you look at it, yes, I understand Moicano's been knockout 3 times, but that's from years ago. He's fought Drew Dober, who's pretty much get the KO or lose, and he beat Drew Dober. Didn't get KO'd. He fought Jalen Turner and BSD. He got knocked out last by Rafael Fiziev. I mean, we all know he's a talented fighter. We just watched him fight. And Jose Aldo back in 2019. I mean, come on. The Korean Zombie back in 2019. Like, those dudes, like, okay, you can understand a knockout. And he's shown in multiple fights since that he still has a chin, in my opinion. So I'm going to count on Renato Moicano winning the striking aspect of this fight. Maybe it's not a knockout. Maybe it's a decision. I anticipate it to be one of the two.
Yeah, another thing that I actually I like from Moicano is like how active he's been since Benil Dariush took all of 2024 off since he lost to Arman Tsarukyan, and then in the meantime, 2024 was a really good year for Moicano, winning 3 fights, and then earlier this year, he lost to Islam, but that was a last minute replacement fight too. So I like that Moicano how active he's been. So to me, the only thing is like how is Benil Dariush gonna look coming back after taking over a year layoff, a year and 6 months. I'm hoping he comes in fresh and heavy, and I'm excited to see what a fresh recovered Benil Dariush with a long layoff will look against a highly active Moicano. That is something I'm interested in seeing, like, because I think we're gonna get a really really good, like best of the best from both guys in this one. So even to this point where I would probably move Benil Dariush, but I'm gonna stick with him as my 4-weight. I'm still rocking with him, but yeah, Moicano's the real deal too.
Yeah, and I didn't move Moicano down necessarily as like a knock against him. It was just more or less a little more confidence in who my three weight's going to be, and just kind of after thinking about it, like I do respect Benil Dariush a lot, and I'm a fan of his, and I'm happy for him if he gets the job done. So I feel like there's a good outcome for the lightweight division either way here. But that said, we'll move on to my four weight then. And my four weight is going to take us into the first of two championship bouts of this Saturday afternoon. And the first of two being the co-main event. I'm going to go into Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. Alexandre Pantoja is defending his belt. What is it, the fourth time? I'm trying to go off memory, I believe. This will be he won it against Moreno, defended Royval, defended Urseg, defended Kai. So this will actually be the fourth defense since he's won the belt. Pantoja turning into quite a savant of the flyweight division after winning it with Brandon Moreno's loss, and he's pretty much taken it and ran with it. So props to him. And anyone who's watched the show for a while knows that I've pretty much been a backer of Pantoja ever since then. I think I've projected every single fight he's won correctly since the fight against Moreno, when I predicted him to beat Moreno for the title in the first place. And same thing with Kai Kara France. I remember predicting his win back in 2022 against Askar Askarov. He was an underdog in that fight, and I remember saying, no, he's going to win this fight. He got the job done as an underdog, won me some good money, and unfortunately proceeded to lose his belt shot against Brandon Moreno that year. But since then, still has a decent, respectable scorecard, stat sheet, whatever you want to call it. Losing to Amir Albazi, who's a stud, back in 2023. Although he also went on to lose to Brandon Moreno. So I'm not sure where he quite stands yet in this division, but it was a split decision. And then he beat Steve Astroboy Urseg last year. So this is Kai Kara France's first fight in like 10 to 11 months. Decent amount of time there in between fights. Alexander Pantoja fought last in December, so 6 to 7-ish months for Pantoja defending his belt from what was Kai Asakura, his debut in the UFC, getting choked out by Pantoja. So I won't delay it any further. If you haven't already guessed that I will be supporting my boy Alexander Pantoja as my four-weight in this fight. It really just comes down to a simple aspect of wrestling in this fight. Alexander Pantoja has utilized wrestling in every single one of his defense and or title fights. 6 against Moreno, takedowns that is, 8 against Royval, 9 against Steve Urseg, and 3 against Pantoja, or Kaya Sakura, excuse me, because he didn't need to do any more because he submitted him and finished him in the second round. Could have easily done a lot more. I think there's going to be a lot more of that coming. Kai Kara France is a dog. He's not a kind of guy who gets taken down too much, don't get me wrong. Like when you look at his raw stats, 88% takedown defense, so that looks great and all. Amir Albazi is part of the reason, right? 1 of 9 takedowns landed, but still 6 minutes of control time in that fight. I'll tell you what, if you grant 6 minutes of control time to Alexander Pantoja, I'm very scared if I am on Kai Kara France's side. In this fight, and Alexander Pantoja is a quite heavy favorite at minus 280. Kai Kara France is plus 210. I think that makes sense. In my opinion, Kai Kara France's only path to winning this fight is via a KO finish. Alexander Pantoja's never been KO'd. He's never been finished in general. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not possible. If anyone is to do it, sure, it's probably Kai Kara France. 12 KOs out of his 25 professional wins. I just don't see it happening in this fight. I think Pantoja's way too smart. I think he's got great vision, and I think he's able to push pace late into the fight, where Kai Kara France might have lost some of the edge. I'm thinking if if Pantoja gets out of the second round and wins one of those 2 rounds, I think he's good. I think he's going to cruise to four round wins in that fight. I don't think Kai Kara France is going to carry his power all the way through to the 4th and 5th round when it would matter most. So that said, Pantoja's with experience, with wrestling, and with pure grit is going to get the win for weight. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, Nick, I heavily agree with you. Also on this pick with Alexander Pantoja, I think wrestling is going to be a big role in this one. And so that being said, I am going with Alexander Pantoja. He is my 1-weight. The reason is that Kai Kara France does have pretty good takedown defense too. So if he can defend on the feet, On the feet, Kai Kara France, he's phenomenal with his kickboxing. So I do think that he can possibly stun and get a vantage point over Alexander Pantoja on the feet. He even has a 2-inch reach advantage over Alexander Pantoja, but I think Alexander Pantoja is probably just gonna out wrestle him, even do some cage work, and ultimately, I do think Pantoja could even submit Kai Kara France. I do think Kai Kara France will probably get tired out more in the fourth and fifth round, and I think that's a prime time for Alexander Pantoja to submit him. So that is the way I'm also taking this. It's either going to be unanimous decision or submission by Pantoja. Ultimately, Pantoja has just been looking phenomenal. He hasn't really disappointed me. I've been picking him nonstop. And since the Brandon Moreno fight, then that he won split decision too. Brandon Moreno, I picked him when they last fought, and he beat him split. But since then, I had picked him against Royval, Steve Erceg, and Kaya Sakura, and he's done nothing but just prove that he's dominant, whether it's unanimous or submission, which is exactly the two methods I'm taking him. So, not much to say here. I think that he's going to dominate in that aspect. But again, if he can't take Kai Kara France down, the only way I can see Kai Kara France beating him too is via TKO in the first 3 rounds, or if it goes to the decision, it would have to be a split decision. That is. So that being said, I'm going with Pantoja as well. He is my one weight though, just because Kai Kara France, he's just so good on the feet, and he comes from a great camp. Like they've been studying Pantoja very well and closely. So yeah, not much to say else on my end anymore. But yeah, I agree with you on this one. I got Pantoja as well, but he is my one weight.
Sounds good, man. So we'll agree on that one, and then we got your three weight next.
My 3 weight, this one actually goes to the prelims, and it's the main event of the prelims. It's one I'm actually excited about, and I just this is the middleweight bout between Jack Hermanson and Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. And I just realized I'm picking a lot of underdogs to this one, so I'm hoping it's the night of the underdogs, because I'm going with Jack Hermanson. He is a plus 158 underdog, while RoboCop is a minus 205 favorite. The reason I'm going with Jack Hermanson is dude is just coming off a spectacular win a year ago over Joe Pyfer, beating him going 5 rounds against him and winning unanimously. And in this one, I think I think he's just ultimately going to dominate RoboCop on the feet and possibly submit him or just ground and pound him and not have the most exciting fight, because Jack Hermanson can kind of have some boring fights too, where I think he's just going to completely control him on the ground majority of the fight and get that control time and rack up points slowly. And not really give Gregory Rodriguez anything, not much to work with. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gregory Rodriguez doesn't even land that many shots or throw that many shots in this fight. I think Jack Hermanson is just going to play that strong wrestling game against RoboCop, and RoboCop is coming off a loss to Jared Cannonier, being TKO'd in the 4th round. And so RoboCop is only 33 years old, but he definitely looks like he's already like in his upper 30s to even 40s. Like I don't know why, like he's 33, but he just definitely looks older than what he really is. And him losing to someone who's 8 years older than him, Jared Cannonier, like I thought, I thought Jared Cannonier was going to not look good at all, and if he was going to win, it was going to be by decision. But the fact that he was able to finish RoboCop, makes me feel a little more confident as well that Jack Hermanson, being 37 years old, and Jack Hermanson beating young stud and Joe Pyfer, who since that loss to Hermanson has come and won twice, beating Kevin Gastelum most recently, and then getting a knockout himself over Marc-Andre Barrial. So, and Joe Pyfer is a knockout artist. Like, out of his 14 wins, he's got 9 via KO/TKO. RoboCop is a knockout artist as well. Out of his 16 wins, he's got 10 via KO/TKO. So I think Hermanson, he's going, and Hermanson in his own respect is also a knockout artist as well. But he's got phenomenal, out of all of them, he's got better grappling, better wrestling in general. And so that being said, like, I don't think it, the fact that he's that much of an underdog is just crazy to me, because he's already proven time and time again that he can hang with these younger guys that carry a lot of power behind their punches, and he's doing it more strategically, just almost like a vet move in respect to him. So in this one, like, yeah, I got Jack Hermanson as my 3-way. I think he's ultimately going to win either unanimous or by submission in this one. over RoboCop. So yeah, I like this pick a lot. He is my underdog, one of my other underdogs, one of my mini dogs of the week. So this one I'm going with Jack Hermanson. I just think his experience is going to play a huge role. His experience in grappling. So that being said, I got Jack Hermanson for this one. He's on the prelims. Nick, do you have any thoughts on this fight?
I don't have a weight on it. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to be. I don't know. I am impressed in your confidence in Jack Hermanson. I think I would say my most confident pick here is for some reason I'm really feeling over 2.5 rounds. I'm really feeling that these dudes are gonna take it slow, take it easy. I just don't have a sense that this fight's going to be an early finish. I could be wrong. I would lean over 2.5, and at that point, you pick who you think wins the decision. I like Jack Hermanson. I'd like to think he wins slight edge, and my thought actually being that RoboCop doesn't take damage very well. I feel like he bleeds easy. I feel like the way his face is just like kind of scabbed up, it's almost like a small version of Nate Diaz where he just kind of gets punched in the wrong way and he starts bleeding, and I think that's going to end up looking bad on the decision cards.
Yeah, I get and that's something I was thinking too. Like if Hermanson, if he gets to the ground, and I don't think it'll take long for him to start making a bloody mess out of Gregory Rodriguez.
Yeah,
Just that's the way I view it. So yeah, you don't have a pick on this one, but you know what, I'm liking Hermanson a lot in this one. So yep, he's my three weight.
yeah. You got to consider that stuff, man. They don't give us a lot when it comes to judging, and sometimes you never know what these judges are going to do. But when they stand firm on something in terms of saying damage counts towards points in a fight, you got to think about what fighters might bleed and what fighters might look bad at the end of the fight. So that could be the difference maker. But I'll move forward. We have one more title shot to discuss here because I realize our show is going. What are we at here? Just over 30 minutes. Usually a little bit quicker than that, I think. But that's a lot to discuss today. We got some good fights, and I love the discussion and the underdogs. I love the underdogs. It's a great one. Love Jose's underdogs. Of course, I agree on some, not all. That said, let's see if we agree on another underdog or not, because I'm going with Charles Oliveira as my three weight against Ilia Topuria. Let's stack the dogs up again. You bet that somehow Ilia Topuria is the favorite here. Look, I don't mean to dog Ilia Topuria, but the fact that he's going up in weight and he's a minus 460 favorite against Oliveira, to me, is just criminal. I don't understand. Like, who is putting their hard-earned money for Topuria, a guy who's, yes, was the champ at featherweight, is now moving up to lightweight to fight a former champ, a guy as good as Charles Oliveira is, and be that heavy of a favorite. Like, it'd be one thing if he was like minus 110 or minus 130, right? He is a minus 460. You would have to bet $460 on Ilya to win 100. That is nuts. That is just nuts. I understand he's coming off an exciting, cool win against Holloway, right? Holloway's a natural featherweight. And we can look at the history. Look at what old Volkanovski did at lightweight. Are you going to tell me that Volkanovski isn't as good as Ilya, who everybody says is the GOAT, and then went up to fight in lightweight and got wrecked twice? Ilya's different in the effect of minus 460? I don't understand. I really still don't understand. Oliveira is going to be a better striker, in my opinion. Oliveira's got 3 inches of height and 5 inches of reach. The frame difference to me, I think I was telling this to Jose in a call we had on the side earlier, but like there's a Twitter page that will like, or even a YouTube page that will like go and post the fighter weights on the night of the fight, right? So these guys are gonna have to weigh in at 155 on Friday night or Thursday or Friday morning, really, and then Saturday night they're gonna weigh in again before going in a fight. And I'd be willing to bet that Oliveira is close to 10 pounds heavier than Topuria. Close to 10 pounds heavier. And I feel like the difference in the cage is going to be nuts. I think Charles Oliveira is going to be way stronger, way bigger, way more powerful. I just don't even think it's going to be close. Honestly, I'm so misunderstood, and it's crazy if I'm that wrong about it, right? If I have to come on this show Monday and it's like, oh, look how stupid I am, Oliveira got his butt kicked, then I'll admit it, right? I guess I have to admit it because we're going to get something wrong in this business. That's how it works. I'm never going to be 100%. But to me, it's just wild the disrespect. Even if Oliveira loses, it's not going to be to the tune of plus 360. That is crazy. This man is a former title challenger, former champion of the lightweight division, and he's only lost to Islam and Arman Sarukian, who would both also beat Topuria. They both also would. I'm saying it right here, right now. Topuria is great. He's a dog, but he is not a lightweight. That's all. That's what I truly believe. You can look at it from Izzy's perspective. You can look at it from Volkanovski's perspective. Holloway went up and lost to Dustin Poirier, or no, he beat Justin Gaethje or whatever. Okay, cool, right? So few fighters are able to move up in a weight class and actually fight well for multiple fights. Look at Davison Figueiredo. He did just fine. He won a fight or two, got pummeled. He's clearly not a top 10, right? Even guys who weren't former champs, moving up in divisions, it usually doesn't work, right? It usually just doesn't. And here's another I put it down in the books. This is gonna be another example of a guy that's moving up in weight and failing in terms of holding the current status he had at his previous weight class. I'm not saying Topuria is going to fail completely as a lightweight. He's still a top 5 guy, but he will fail at becoming a champion on Saturday night. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, this is another agreement we're going to have. I am going with Charles Oliveira, another underdog right here as well. And yeah, I mean, both, this one was a tough one for me. And the reason why I have Charles Oliveira so low is my two ways because we have seen Ilia Topuria at lightweight before. The last time I think he fought at lightweight was when he knocked out Jai Herbert in spectacular fashion. And as you remember, Jai Herbert almost had an opportunity to finish Ilia Topuria with a head kick, and so Ilia Topuria has dealt with bigger guys. Jai Herbert, he's 6'1", similar to he's taller than Charles Oliveira, and he has a longer reach than Charles Oliveira. He has a 70-inch reach, while Oliveira has a 74-inch reach. So Ilia Topuria has already dealt with bigger dudes, bigger than Oliveira at the lightweight level, and finished them before. So that, to me, that was my biggest concern with Ilia Topuria moving up to lightweight against Charles Oliveira, and not to mention, um, Ilia Topuria has actually got, even though he hasn't shown it as much, he has spectacular jujitsu as well, and he submitted guys in the UFC as well. So that being said, like we've seen what Ilia Topuria can do at lightweight. The last time he hasn't gotten a submission in a minute. But that was against Bryce Mitchell, who Bryce Mitchell has phenomenal jiu-jitsu as well. So that being said, like we and that was at 145 actually. But so we've seen Ilia Topuria have good jiu-jitsu against someone else who's better, who has good jiu-jitsu, and we've seen him deal with bigger lightweights, and so he has the tools to beat Charles Oliveira. So I can kind of see why he is a little bit of a. I don't think he should have been that much of a favorite, but it should have been the. I think the line should have been a little closer at least. But Oliveira, in his own respect, like his entire resume is legendary though, and he himself, like even though he lost to Arman Sarukian, that was a split decision loss. So he was really close there, and pretty much the only fight that he's not looked that good at as of recent was that Islam fight. But Islam is, he's Islam, so that's all I can say there. And that being said, we've seen Oliveira get rocked by Michael Chandler, almost get put out, and come back and win by submission. So I think that's the type of energy I'm going to roll with Oliveira in this one. That's why I'm banking on him as the underdog. I think Ilia Topuria will rock Charles Oliveira and drop him once or twice. I think this is going to be an exciting fight, similar to like a Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje type of fight. I think it's going to be a banger, and I think Oliveira is going to weather the storm and at the end either win by split decision or submission. And that's been kind of, I guess, also my theme along with going with the underdogs. I think I've been saying all my underdogs are either going to win by decision or submission, and that's the way I'm going with this one as well. I think Topuria will definitely rock Oliveira, but I think Oliveira, in his own respect, also has knockout power too. I never say never. Have never seen Ilia Topuria get knocked out or be rocked. But it could happen. It could definitely happen. Oliveira's continuously finding ways, just I guess, to surprise us all, and he's always getting a win. And something you can definitely, I think, bank on for sure is both of these dudes are finishers. Out of Ilia Toporia's 16 wins, he's only gone the distance twice. And Oliveira, out of his 35 wins, he's only gone the distance 4 times. So I think it's safe to say, I'm going to take out the decision choice. I'm just going to take that out. I think you can bank on that this fight's probably not going to make it to the end of the 5 rounds. I think that it's going to be a classic banger going back and forth, but I don't think it's going to make it to the end of the 5th round. I think it may get finished in the 5th round. It may get finished in the 4th or anywhere, obviously in between. But that being said, I got Charles Oliveira, but he's just so I just because of his resume, he's got all the tools. Both guys have all the tools to beat each other, but Oliveira's just been doing it longer at this weight class and this the 155ers, their top five. I think it's a different class than the top five at 145. With all respect to the 145ers, but just being able to hang at this time at the 155 for such a long time, especially when 155 was like the best of the best in the UFC for the longest time, like from 2013 all the way up to 2020. Oliveira was in there in the heat of it nonstop, delivering wins against any challenger that stepped in front of him. So, and I think Ilia Topuria is just another legendary name being added to his resume. If it wasn't for the title fight, this is a good BMF fight as well. So, that being said, I got Oliveira. He is my two-way just because Ilia Topuria is a beast as well in his own right, but I'm taking Oliveira. Most likely, I'm hoping by submission, TKO/KO. All I know is I doubt this fight will make the distance. So I agree with you on this one. I'm going with the underdog, Charles Oliveira.
All right, man. Yeah. Um, I was just laughing because I think you said I haven't missed my 2-weight just because twice. You were like, I missed my 2-weight just because, and then you went 2 minutes later. You were like, so I haven't missed my 2-weight just because. So that was
There's so
awesome.
much like honestly, the biggest reason is Ilia Topuria. It could knock him out and has good jujitsu and has fought bigger dudes at 155 at the UFC
Mm-hmm.
level. And he's
Yeah.
also again being someone like Bryce Mitchell, who Bryce Mitchell has a phenomenal jujitsu. So it's
Look
him
at
being
his
that much of a
featherweight though.
favorite.
Like Bryce Mitchell would get cleaned in a grappling match by Charles Oliveira, and that's where
Oh,
I draw the line. Because like yes, okay, we're giving credit to these guys, but like same with Jai Herbert. Like dude's kind of a bomb. Like Jai Herbert almost knocking out Topuria is like damn. Like okay, good for you Topuria to win the fight, but like Jai Herbert like is like 1-3. I feel like since that fight too.
He's not obviously the best, but still, I mean, I think when they fought each other, Jai Herbert had a better resume for sure.
It said Topuria was like
He
-600 in that
in
fight.
that fight, yeah.
I
So
think so.
like, yeah, and I mean, I would like not to knock on Jai Herbert or anything, but at least like I know they're not the same, but like it's that type of mentality. Like, the body is so different. Like Ilya Taporia fighting at 155, I swear to God, he's gonna look better too than 145, 100%. And then he's even talked about
Yeah.
170, which I could believe him fighting at 170. He's not gonna look the biggest, but I feel like he'll probably perform very well at 170 as well.
That's good. That's bold to hear from someone like Jose, who's got experience, in combat sports. So, you got to take his word for it to some degree. I personally would have to see it before I agree. I think Topper like I guess what I'm saying is even though Oliveira is my 3-weight, I feel like I'm way more confident than you are in him. I feel like I'm way more confident in Oliveira because I'm very confident in Oliveira. I as much as I respect Topuria, I could put Oliveira as my 5-weight if it wasn't for feeling like Royval was getting completely crucified
Yeah, but I mean,
on
by
that
all
top
means,
fight.
like if Oliveira wins this by submission in the first round, I'm even happier. Like, yeah, even though it was my two-way, I'm just happier he won.
Yeah, I mean
He was
it'll
my
be
pick.
interesting. Um, I don't know if he wins in the first round though. I'm just saying like the odds indicate Topuria is going to win in the first round, and I don't think that's got like a 0.1% chance of happening in my book. But hey, anything can happen in combat sports, especially at the highest level. Honestly, can't be mad for either of these dudes winning the belt. I'm definitely rooting for Oliveira, But the story's crazy if Topuria wins. The story's crazy.
Yeah, because if Topuria wins, well, Islam vacated, so no way Islam will come back down anymore, right? So then at that point, it's what Armin Sarukian versus Ilia Topuria.
I think Islam would only come back down if it was like some sort of like crazy super fight. I think whoever wins Saturday's fight, would have to like continue on to defend the belt multiple times first. To
True,
entice,
yeah.
in my opinion, Topuria's probably got the bigger like. Since Oliveira's been there, done that, he's probably less flashy. So if Topuria wins, he's probably got a slightly better edge to that, just because there's that whole like you haven't fought him before, and we've seen Oliveira and Islam fight before, so that's probably what it would need to be. Is either Oliveira defends a bunch of times, or Topuria wins in some crazy way, and then Topuria would still need to beat Armin Sarukian first, in my opinion, before Islam moves down. That's just my opinion. The UFC will do what the UFC wants, and they'll get money doing it. And I could easily see.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good matchups. If Elliott wins and beats Charles Oliveira, like, yeah, oh man, the matchups are just going to be so fun.
Either way, in my opinion, Armin's next.
Maybe Justin Gaethje, and then he beats those two, and then I think and if Islam wins 170, Ilya talked about chasing him and going up to 170, so that's why I referenced that.
Dude, that's just crazy. Though. I feel like, dude, to me though, is it not crazy to me to think like if Ilya's looking that far ahead, what is he doing? You need to win a fight. You realize why are you talking about 170, dude? That's kind of annoying. Like, why don't you win a fight at 155 first? A fight against a guy who isn't like a bottom 20 fucking bottom dwelling fighter like Jai Herbert. If you beat Charles Oliveira, then you can start talking. He's talking before he beat anybody. He's going to move up 35 pounds, or he's going to beat, you know what I'm saying? Like, chill out, man, chill out. One step at a time, Ilya. You beat Oliveira. You defend Armin. I meant to say Armin. And then we can start talking 170. Like, what the fuck? I'm very against just giving anybody double champ status. You can't just allow Joe Schmo, who thinks he's all that, to go and get a double belt. What have you done for us? Give me something good. Izzy deserved his shot because he had fought everybody in middleweight twice over, right? Guys like Volkanovski deserved his shot. He fought everybody in that division featherweight twice over, damn near, right? Those dudes obviously deserve the shot. But Islam, dude, I keep mixing up and saying Islam, which annoys me. Obviously, I'm not talking about Islam. Ilya, it's because they both start with I's. Ilya has done great. Yes, he's undefeated. And yes, he was a champ. But he defended it a whole one time. I'm going to need to see a little bit more personally. But I'm also not the UFC, and the UFC knows what makes money. I just really hope, man, for the sake of the sport, please, dear God, please, do not let any champ just call out another champ. The whole thing's going to get messed up. We've already got a heavyweight division that didn't move for like 2 years thanks to John Jones. We've already got other divisions that are so top heavy that like I just want these some of these divisions that are having problems to not be so stuck back in time. And especially with ones like lightweight that are so packed, like you said, lightweight was like the hardest division to get up in for however long. And now we're talking about the lightweight champ going up to welterweight and holding up the entire lightweight division. Just hold them up. Stop. You can't fight now. Our champ's going to go up to welterweight, and we're not going to have a lightweight championship fight for all of 2026. That's what would end up happening. So, either way, I didn't mean to go on a little side tirade there. I just hope the UFC sticks to the champs, like the true. Like, you got to defend 3 or 4 times, in my opinion. Like Pantoja is still barely at the line. Like, do you think Pantoja should get double champ status? He's defended his belt 4 times now. But most people would be but why is Topuria better? He's defended his belt once.
As Pantoja, I mean, I feel like it depends how much the fighter advocates for. I haven't heard has Pantoja advocated a lot for moving up? If he has and he hasn't gotten it, then because if he's defended that many times, then yeah.
I'm trying to just pose an imaginary scenario where Pantoja was speaking up, and he was like, "Send me up, coach. I think most people would go, "You're not good enough."
I, I would say why not though? Like
Interesting.
why not? Like
I
I would say
get you.
why
I
not?
get you.
Like
It gets you, man. I
like
don't know. I'm kind of on the fence there. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I think you got to like really show it. I think you really got to
no, I
run
hear
through
you.
your whole division and show that you're like that's not even close. Like nobody should be moving up to middleweight right now either. Middleweight's got enough shit going on. Lightweight's got enough shit going on. You want to move up? Move up to light heavyweight. Go figure that shit out, right? Alex Pereira and Magomed can go suck themselves off. Figure it out at light heavyweight. All right? But right now, middleweight, lightweight, no. Welterweight, even arguably, they're good. They're set. Shavkat still hasn't gotten his shot. What is going on? This is crazy. Stop moving up to these weight classes where other guys deserve it. How does Ilya
True.
deserve it over Shavkat? That's crazy. All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
true.
gotta stop with that time.
That is true.
Uh, either way, I got one more pick. I believe Jose's gone through all his five, so I'll give my last pick here and see if Jose has any input on it. That's it. This is the fifth fight. The opening fight of the main card, of course, the fifth fight, last fight on the overall card of UFC 317. This is Peyton Talbot in a bantamweight fight against Felipe Lima. I'm excited to see this fight. Peyton Talbot coming off of the loss for the first time in his UFC career against Raoni Barcelos, and I believe Jose and I actually called that one, or at least one of us did. Picked Raoni Barcelos just based on experience. I mean, obviously, if you've listened to this show, you know that we're pretty big on experience here, and that's a couple of reasons that we've picked some previous underdogs on this card. Peyton Talbot lost to a guy with heavy experience, and now the UFC is feeding him Felipe Lima. And I say feeding him because, of course, Peyton Talbot is my one-weight pick. Peyton Talbot is a plus 148 underdog in this fight. Boy, oh boy, the dogs keep coming. It's crazy. Jose and I have picked dog after dog in this card, and we're going yet again with another dog. This is my third underdog. Jose's actually got four dogs, I believe. But in any case, I'm really on Peyton Talbot here. I think he's going to bounce back from Raoni Barcelos' loss and come out tough against Felipe Lima. I think he's going to come out like almost like tough with a vengeance is what I'm trying to say. Like he's going to come out aggressive and fast, and he's going to be feeding for a win back in the cage. I think Felipe Lima has very limited experience, and he's coming out of some Octagon MMA program where he only had one win. I believe he was their champ or something along those lines. And then he got a UFC shot against Muhammad Naimov, submitted him, beat Miles Johns via decision. I'm not impressed. I think Peyton Talbot's going to come in and clean this guy up. Pretty much simple as that. I think it's a KO, or there's a chance for a decision too somewhere in there. I wouldn't bet solely KO unless the line is really juicy. But Peyton Talbot by KO or decision to beat Felipe Lima pretty easily here. Felipe Lima doesn't have a good enough wrestling background to be able to get out of the way of Peyton Talbot's fierce boxing acumen. Peyton Talbot, of his 9 professional wins, has landed 7 KO wins and never gotten finished. Felipe Lima is more of a decision fighter. 7 decision wins out of 14 professional wins. I don't think that's going to fly here against Peyton Talbot coming off a loss. I think he's going to shoot out the start of the fight just like a cannon out of a cannonball essentially, and it's just going to look good. I think Peyton Talbot gets back in the win column, and the UFC realizes that they need to stop throwing these young kids into the fire against experienced vets. Like we're going to see it again with Josh Van fighting Brandon Royval. We're going to see it with Peyton Talbot actually beating Felipe Lima, because Felipe Lima is not a seasoned veteran. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, Nick. So this one, I do not have a weight on it, but if I did, I was going with Payne Talbot as my one weight as well. And like you said, I think Payne Talbot's gonna win this. He's either gonna get the finish or win unanimously here. And I think if he has the ability to knock out Felipe Lima, particularly because Payne Talbot just throws a high volume of punches. He lands 6.73 significant strikes per minute. He does absorb some back, though he absorbs 3.75, but that volume of 6.73 is just so high, man. Like I just think that yeah, he's gonna outpace. He's gonna outpace uh, Lima, and he ultimately is just gonna come down to him either winning unanimously or getting the knockout. So I have not seen enough of Felipe Lima, and I agree with you. I'm not really impressed by his 2 wins coming into the UFC thus far. Payne Talbot, for being 26, he actually has quite a bit of UFC experience already. So that being said, yeah, I'm going with Payne Talbot on this one. I have no weight on it, but I agree with you 100%. And as you mentioned, yeah, he is another underdog. So yeah, it's the night of the dogs for sure.
Man, I couldn't believe that when I saw Peyton Talbot's the dog. It's like how am I this confident in so many underdogs? This seems like a great card to make some money on, but also it's like
Right?
I almost want to be hesitant because like it almost seems too good to be true. You know what I'm saying? Like how am I so confident in guys that I feel like are going to make me all this money? I mean that's interesting, dude. If we leave out, we can leave out Darius versus Moicano because that's the fight we disagreed on. And to be honest, neither of those guys are huge favorites anyways, so it's not too big of a difference to leave either one of them out. But we both agreed on Royval. We both agreed. Pantoja was the main favorite that we agreed on. But we agree on the underdog main event. So just saying, if you take the 4 fights that we agree on, and just say money line only, right? We're not going as far as to pick an outcome or a double chance outcome. We're gonna get plus 2,727 odds. That's crazy. So that means betting $1 is gonna win you $27.27 on the 4 fights that we agreed on, with 3 of them being underdogs. I think that's insanely good value. Now, I'm not endorsing a 4 leg parlay. That's something that if you're going to do it, literally put $1 on it because you're going to end up wasting your money. It's very hard to get 4 picks right, yet alone 3 underdogs in those 4. But just saying, that's mainly there to explain the value that's found. And if you like 2 of those 4, maybe do a 2 leg parlay, and you'll get some great returns on no matter who you're picking. So that said, we're going to wrap it up here at Moneyline MMA. Thanks for listening. We'll, of course, be back next week. We get to have a week off, actually. Sorry, we're not going to be back next week. They have a July 4th break, and then the week after is going to be UFC Nashville. So what's cool is that Jose and I get to visit that one in person. We'll get to do the show on, that'll be the 7th of July, and then we'll be in person for the fights on the 12th of July, and then I believe we'll be able to do a show without the use of a video call as well that weekend. So exciting stuff for Moneyline MMA coming up. Very excited for that. So